We're here at Ram Precision in Pennsylvania. Ram was one of our early customers, and they make a lot of use of the more complex parts of our work routing system, have a lot of related part families, and Kale is kind of the primary person who builds that out here. And I think we're going to go through a couple examples here today.
Yeah, this is one of the products where we have a lot of different variations, but the step that we're doing now is early on, so it's similar for everything. So you can see we built out a lot of different parts here, and they get all connected into there and connected into another row of parts. And then we're finally back to this operation, which is what we're working on now. So if I go into here, we can see that we need to have a little over 1,300 parts, but the system's taking all these orders that we have and combining them together and letting us know, go ahead and make 1,300 at this machine, so we don't have to sit there and add up all the numbers, because they're definitely changing on a daily basis.
None of these orders are actually for the part you're working on, right? You've basically managed to split out the work routing in a way to where you're working on these blanks, which then feed into the stuff that we kind of saw on the dependency graph.
Yeah.
All sorts of different parts throughout the system, right?
This is very early on, so this can spread out very quickly, and that's what we were just showing there, is all the different branches this goes into. And that's why it's so hard to keep track of, because there's so much of it. But we set this up a couple years ago, and it just runs through for us, so we don't have to think about it anymore. And that's right here on the machine where the people are working, so they're not asking anybody, they can see it real time.
And then based on the priorities that come from Rudy, who kind of interacts with the customers, he just sets those. You guys know what thing to make, and operators just check it, run it, and you kind of trust that it's going to be right at the end of the day.
Yeah, and the good part is at this stage, we don't need to worry about the priorities. As they get closer to being finished, those priorities mean more, but Rudy's on top of that every day. So
yeah, I know we have another example set up over here too.
So this is a different example where, I have about an 8-minute cycle time on this one. So when I'm looking into the system of what I'm working on here, I can get a good view of, in 8 minutes, I could do something else. So I'm looking, I don't have enough pieces for this operation, but I can also see that the next operation to feed this is only 2 steps behind, and I could be running that while I'm running this. So now I'm going to be feeding parts in to keep this machine running and get all these parts done. It's all calculated to give us just what we want and not too many.
Right, and I know you guys kind of will shift operators between different departments based on where your bottlenecks are that week. And I know part of what allows you to do that is just the amount of setup photos, the amount of information you're kind of putting in there. So I don't know if you want to run us through maybe an example here.
We can go into here. So what I can do is I'll use my phone, and I'm logged into this operation here. So I can go into comments and I can pick and take a photo. And let's say we need a photo of this nice setup we have here, and it'll tell me when it's ready to upload, so I can send that. When I refresh this, it's going to have this data right away, so I can get that picture into the computer, and I have it right here. So whoever runs this next, like you were saying, if we move somebody else here, they can see exactly how we set this up. I mean, this would take a couple paragraphs to explain how to do it. They have a picture and they can get rolling right away.
Yeah, I know kind of once you guys get to an end of a run, or kind of on a periodic basis, you're actually taking those photos, putting them in your standard work instructions, and making that part of kind of your process, right? So operators are able to find better ways of doing things, take photos, and it especially happens a lot in the grinding area. And that kind of becomes a standard that you then kind of use going forward, kind of always improving on that.
Yeah, actually our laser is the best spot to do that, because there's some weird setups in there, and you're using 5 or 6 different components to kind of make a nice little fixture. And now, even with somebody that doesn't run it all the time, they can go there, find what they need quickly, set it up to the picture, and they're running. So setup times are reduced dramatically because of that. And like you said, yeah, we'll push that into the operation. Like a picture like this is important, so that'll go right into the operation, so nobody's looking for it in the comments. It's right in front of their face as soon as they go to log in.
Yeah, and then with those part families too, I know sometimes you put it on the operation itself, sometimes you're also kind of building out a standard work process, putting all the documentation on that, and then you can use that across all the different parts that kind of have similar similar work instruction.
Yeah, that's a good example. That project there, there's so many different parts that feeds into, and lasering is one of the last steps. So the laser setup, like that picture I was just talking about, is the same across, let's say, 40 parts. So I have a process on that instead of an operation. So that process is shared across there. So if I make a better picture or add a good note on there, all 40 of those get that update.
Anything else you gotta run through here? I know demand aggregation is really big for you guys, making sure that no one really has to think about what exactly you have to make. You just kind of follow the system.
There's the min stock that we use a little bit. So, we always want to have a few extras, because as we're running this operation, there could be an order that comes in. So I don't want to be 5 short or 10 short. So we have a calculated number that we want extra, and we can store that in the system. So the system is actually adding that to our numbers.
Those numbers are sort of something you guys have set over time by looking at kind of your historical order quantities, by your kind of most efficient, batch sizes. And that's kind of how you're setting that in order to trigger the right amount of work. Right?
Yeah, there's a lot of inputs into that. And then, maybe one time we came up a little short, we increased that number a little bit, and, it's instantly going to change things in the system. It's going to drive the numbers that we need. Or you could have the other situation where you have too many of them and you're like, okay, well, let's cut back a little bit on that number, so we can just tweak that number as we go.
And then because you've kind of set all that stuff up, when an order comes in for a part you've already made, how much work are you really putting into it? It's pretty automatic, right?
It's pretty automatic. There's a lot of things that we'll push through the time consuming, like up through heat treat. And then, we kind of wait to get the orders in. There's other ones that we'll put them completely in stock because we know sometime this year they'll order them. And then when an order comes in, we can ship it the same day, if not maybe the next day. But we're not setting up to make 3 parts. We have those 3 extra parts and they can go out. And then if that depletes, the system tells us to go ahead and make a few more.
Yeah. And Kale, I know you've been one of the kind of big proponents pushing the adoption of kind of Start Proto and running operations. What would you give as like a tip to either an owner or another kind of shop foreman knows the benefit of the system and just needs to get buy-in from their staff? Kind of what's your trick to getting that done?
To get the buy-in from the staff, that probably is one of the hardest things. It was really quick for us to see that there was a benefit, showing them that they have more information than they used to have. When they're making a part, they can see that they're filling 2 orders, or that they're filling 1 order and making a couple extras. So if they would scrap one, they still have extras and they're still complete the order. They don't have to panic and think, oh no, I got to go back and make another one or start another one. They have that information right in front of them. So as they got more comfortable with seeing everything in the system, they feel like they have that information that they need to keep moving along. And a lot of the input they have, so the same way we took the picture here, we can have the users put notes in. So the operator says, well, I use this wheel and this setup, and they can have that in there. So it's kind of in their own words. So next time they see it, it's good. And then maybe somebody else runs it and they're like, oh, I don't understand this. So they ask a question. So they add a little bit more. So every time through, we're getting a refinement of the notes that are necessary to make these easier. Like you were saying, if we move people around, that's when they see, all right, well, this note doesn't make sense, so we just make it a little better, and they have that input. So everybody's kind of in charge of making it better, which is good. So they feel good about that. Start with one product or one part and get people used to how it works and get that confidence that we have that the numbers are good. It's figuring everything out for us in the right way, and just keep expanding out and doing more and more of it. And especially, when you want to make 1 or 2 extra parts to make sure you have enough for the order, you could put that in there and see how that works for you through the shop.
Yeah. Anything else you'd want to leave, prospective Start Proto users or kind of anyone in the manufacturing space with, just kind of as a tip in general on how to run your business, or specifically kind of how you might do so with Start Proto?
One of the big things we do is try, like in this one, we try to get back to making a similar part for multiple parts and trying to make that as efficient as possible, because now we're making more of the same thing. So that's kind of a goal of ours, is how many products can we do that with? The more you do it with, the better it is. So, and that gets us understanding how everything works in the system a little bit better. So it makes us better at Start Proto as well.
Yeah, I know you guys' order volumes have grown significantly.
Yeah,
haven't really changed your staff size. That kind of, you're able to run it through with that efficiency.
Yeah, it definitely helps a lot. It's doing a lot of work that we were doing in Excel or by hand, trying to figure out and making guesses at quantities. So that is definitely a lot easier with the system doing that, and it's really good at doing it.
Perfect. Cool. All right. Well, thanks, Kale. And yeah, see you guys in the next one.